That's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Just so you know, there will probably be noises because I'm not allowed to have fucking peace and quiet in the place that I pay for every month. But that's besides the point. So today I'm discussing the finale to the Long Price Quartet by Daniel Abraham. Fantastic, absolutely phenomenal, splendid. I understand the hype now. I understand why people say this is, a fantastic fantasy series. I would still say as a package, you need to read these all together as like a single work in order to truly take that claim of one of the best like fantasy works. But it's so good in terms of like, if you're looking for action, you're gonna be disappointed. But if you're looking for character stuff, if you're looking for theme, all that stuff is super strong. I mean, most of these characters, of course there's new characters, but most of these characters we've met in previous books. So to see them where they're at now in their 60s and stuff, it's incredible. I mean, also just the choice and consequence seeing throughout the series, seeing where everybody started with Mati and Ota, and the choices they made, good or bad, doesn't matter, like whether it was for good or for ill, and the repercussions of those actions in the future. It's incredible to see that spread across 4 books. And the larger scale as the series progressed into global, and yet what we're actually focusing on is still the insular, narrow view of these few people that we witness these events through. And it is a masterclass of character work. I don't think there's a single character in this series that I hate or that is just a one-note villain. Everybody is nuanced, everybody's complex. Bad decisions can be made that lead to good outcomes. Good decisions can be made that lead to terrible outcomes. And regardless of all that, just the weight carried within that person's soul through each work that influences their work in the next, whether that be Mati or Ota, and so on and so forth. It is just splendid work. These last 2 books are just absolutely phenomenal. It doesn't end in the way you expect. In real life, there's no happy endings. There can be peace for a time, but the cycle will always continue. Maybe you get 1,000 years of peace. Not likely, but maybe. But eventually, long after you're dead, strife will occur again, and that's just the nature of things. But overall, fantastic series, and it is talked about a little bit on YouTube, but in terms of like the grander sphere of influence, this series deserves way much more than it has gotten. Like I said, the first 2 are good. The last 2 are great. And as a 4 package deal, you can get some of these books in a single package as a single volume with all the 4 books included. And it's a masterpiece. If you include all 4 as like a single read, phenomenal stuff. So do I recommend the Long Price Quartet? Absolutely. Will I probably, maybe, do a video on Long Price Quartet by itself? Maybe. I think this is a series that you should definitely give a shot if you haven't. It is short, it is sweet, it's only 4 books. Some of these series like Wheel of Time, 13. You read Malazan, 10 books. Or even Robin Hobb may have trilogies, but if you're trying to get through it all, that's a lot. Or Janny Wart's The War of Light and Shadow. These are long arcs. 4 books spanning a large swath of time and deep, deep character work. I mean, I still need to read Robin Hobb. I hear that is also similar to this. But for 4 books, only, a very small page count compared to a lot of fantasy. And the emotional gut punch that it gives every single time. How much I've grown to care and be invested in the short page count of these characters and these stories is incredible. The uniqueness of the fantasy element. Incredible. Such a interesting, limiting, yet expansive idea of magic and how it is used within the setting. Just absolutely phenomenal stuff. And again, I'm so late to the party on everything fantasy on BookTube. What am I gonna say that's different from Philip Chase or Alan from Library of Alexandria or so on and so forth with all these people on YouTube that have discussed this stuff? By and large, I think this is a phenomenal series. If you have not checked it out, you need to, and then watch a discussion like Philip Chase or someone. But it is well worth your time. I'm getting some spoilers. If you don't want any of that, there's the door. So Aya, I don't know, it's with an E. She's now, it's been 15 years. She was a little kid in the last book. She's 20-ish, 30-ish now, or heading toward her 30s. And she's a physician. She's not really spent time with her father in, seems like, quite a few years. We meet a character named Davitt, who's actually just Mati in disguise. And Mati, he went into exile and went into hiding in the last book. But now he's basically the current day Daikovo, as he's kind of doing a Dune, Bene Gesserit sort of function of trying to raise up some woman to be the next poets. Ota is 63. Which makes Mati either 60 or 59 here. Now the whole thing is the Goltz and the Kime are on okay terms. Right now they kind of have to be. They've both been devastated from the last book. But Ota gets this grand plan. Because Golt men cannot produce seed. They can't get girls pregnant. And the woman of the Kime cannot bear children. So, have a Golt and the Kime have Danet marry someone from the Goltz and be able to produce children. But this is a bunch of big political upheaval with everyone because they just had a major war against each other like 15 years ago, and they're not really keen to mix that bloodline. But it's that or extinction, though some would rather have extinction. However, that's Ota's plan. But Mati also has a plan. Bring back the Andits and allow people to give birth that way by undoing what Sterile did. Isandra and Ferrer Dasan agree to help Ota's plan by offering their daughter Anna to this. Also, Danet is now 20. In the last book, he's a little child that was sickly. He's fine now. Also, 1 second. I have a note from my phone, so. The world, Mati began, has two essential structures. There's the physical, he slapped the stone wall behind him, and there's the abstract. 2 and 2 are always 4, regardless of whether you're talking about grains of sand or racing camels. 12 could always be broken into 2 sets of 6 or 3 sets of 4, long before anybody noticed the fact. Abstract structure, you see. They bent toward him like flowers toward the sun. Mati saw the hunger in their faces and the set of their shoulders. Now, Mati said, does the physical require the abstract? Come on, think. Can you have something physical that doesn't have an abstract structure? There was a moment's silence. Water? Small Kai asked, because if you put 2 drops of water together with 2 drops of water, you just get 1 big drop. You're ahead of yourself, Mati said. That's called the doctrine of least similarity. You're not ready for that. What I mean is this. Is there anything real that can't be described by its abstract structure? Any of you? No one has thought about this? I answered that one correctly before I'd seen 10 summers. No, suggested Irit. No, how many of you think she's right? Go on. Take a stand about it one way or the other. Good, yes, Irit's right. Everything physical is abstract structure, but not everything abstract need be physical. That's what we're doing here. That's the asymmetry that lets the undead exist. I just love that little bit of world building and how I explained all that. And also, the world needs you, Mati said. This is when Mati goes to Kemai, who also went into hiding 15 years ago, to try to convince him to help him with this endeavor. However, Kemai in that time has found, who haven't we seen in the last book? Idon, Ota's sister. They have gotten married since. They have built a life together. The world needs you, Mati said. It doesn't. You've come a long way, Mati Kovo, and I've disappointed you, and I'm sorry for that, but you have my answer. I used to be a poet, but I am not anymore. I can reconsider as long as we both keep breathing, and we'll come to the same place. We can't stay on here, Idon said. Her voice was soft. I've loved it here, too. This place, these years. We've been lucky to have them, but Maricha's right. This season and perhaps 5 or 10 after it will make do. But eventually the work will pass us. We're not getting younger, and we can't hire on hands to help us. There aren't any. Then we'll leave, Kimai said. We'll do something else, only not that. Why not, Maddie asked. Because I don't want to kill any more people, Kimai said. Not the girls you've encouraging to try this, nor the foreigners who would try to stop us. No, whatever army came in the next autumn's war. It doesn't have to be like that, Maddie said. It does. We have held the power of gods, and the world envied us and turned against us, and they always will again. I can't say I think much of where we stand now, but I remember what happened to bring us here, and I don't see how making poets of women instead of men will make a world any different or better than the one we had then. It may not, Maddie said, but it will be better than the one we have now. If you won't help me then, I'll do it without you, but I thought better of you, Kimai. I thought you had more spine. That's sort of the last time we really see Kimai. I mean, he shows up, but that's kind of like the last big part of his character arc in this story. The big thing is Ota's gotten Anna, convinced the parents, basically, like arranged marriage, to be with his son. And she says in full front of everyone, I will never sleep with you. You can marry me, but I will never have sex with you. Which causes big upheaval. Danet has firm standing with Ota about how he will not force himself upon her. If she does not want him, he will not force it. And, you just get these little internal monologues from Ota about how he remembers when he was young and he thought he was so morally righteous and superior and, so sure of himself back then. And now that he's older, he feels so unsure about everything. And also we learned that Kyan, she had died of a fever during these 15 years that we've missed. Vanjit, who's one of Mati's disciples, actually manages to make the first Andet in 15 years. She makes a clarity of sight, which is like this little fetus baby that she carries around with no eyes. It's sightless. And it can make people blind or make them see. However, she feels much anger toward the Golds because they killed her family when she was young. Again, 15 years ago. And she causes blindness to many of the people in Golds. And so there's, of course, when you do something like that, just spur of the moment, many people die. Which again, causing problems with this whole political thing of trying to make this marriage happen and peace reign. And this upsets Balazar, who is a smaller character in this book, but he is there, and this obviously upsets him, because the whole reason they've had peace this whole time is because they thought they got rid of the Andits. They had agreed to burn the libraries, all the Andits were seemingly dead, so there was peace among these people. But now that there's something here, it's going to cause everything to just blow up if it's not fixed. So Danet, Anna, and Ota vowed to kill the poets, even if that includes Ota's daughter. And Vanjit continues to be kind of just unreliable and unstable, and so Mati tells Ia that they must kill Vanjit. Sinja, from the last book, also dies in this book, which was very sad. Other things happen, but ultimately we have a big reunion of everyone. This is very tense because Mati has gone from being best friends with Ota to becoming kind of enemies because they're kind of on polar opposites. You can't see how he could ever side with the Golds. And, they're both stubborn old men. The one positive out of all this right now is that Anna, I guess she did reconcile with Danet, and they did the deed, and she is pregnant with Danet's child, so. Mati is just a pained old man. He was never destined for greatness. He would have never ascended if not for Ota, telling him the secret of empathy. But then, would he not have come to that on his own at some point? I don't know. Mati is a good person, but he was never the one that was meant to save the day. Would Ota have saved the day if he had just stayed the course? I don't know. Probably not either. Different decisions would have been made had he stayed. But again, that's a whole other thing. This whole thing started because Ota refused the call that he was orchestrated to have, and everything from that has ultimately been spiraling since. I feel, whatever we want to say about Mati, that they must equally be blamed for everything that's ever happened since the first book. They have kind of been a yin and yang pair, the two of them. Mati just wants to undo the wrongs he's done. And he wants to believe that Banjit, who's basically another surrogate daughter, is capable of being saved, but she's just too far gone. She was not one capable of wielding an undead. It's controlling her instead of her controlling it. However, Iya manages to make her own undead, Wounded, who manages to kill Najit and her undead, and manages to heal and cure everybody of blindness and whatever other problems Vanjit has caused, and makes everybody able to produce children again. And then Iya frees it and gets rid of it. Now Mati is sick, dying, and old. The libraries are gone. His woman poet band has been disbanded. So there is seemingly no Andits forever, at least for a while. The Gults and the Kaim basically form a new organization, society, I don't know what the word, like state or country. They form they become one people, essentially, moving forward. And, Iya says, like, yeah, I got rid of my Andet, and an Andet will be gone for a long time. And sure, there's no library, so it'll be harder. And there'll be many deaths of trial and error until somebody eventually accomplishes creating an Andet. But one day there will be one. It may not be in our lifetime. It may not be in our children's lifetime. It may not be in our children's children's lifetime. It may be even further than that. But one day, eventually, there will be Andets again. As long as there's a possibility of Andets even existing, people will do the trial and error of dying, trying to create one until they eventually create one properly. And of course, they don't have the libraries or Mati to help teach them. So it'll be a lot of trial and error for years and years and years till they eventually succeed. And it will be a problem for a future generation to face. We don't get to see that future. We get a time jump at the end of this book, but we don't get to see those problems or those strife. That is another story that maybe will never be told, but that is something for the far future. Because peace can only exist for so long. Eventually there'll be another cycle, new people, new decisions, new consequences to actions made. That will be future generations' problem. But for now, there is peace. And, there's a future time jump. We get to see Danet with his child. And we get to see, an old Ota spending time with his family. And, before the time jump, Mati, has one last tender moment with Ota before he passes away. Even though he was younger, he passed away first. Ota lived the longest. I mean, he ultimately was the main character of this whole series, even though we jumped to other people. We started with him, we end ultimately with him. But, we have a peaceful, happy ending, seemingly, for most of the characters. But it is not an ultimate happy ending, because strife will happen eventually again. And I just love how the series handles consequence and decisions, because you can be a really good person and try to make a really good decision, and it may be a perfectly good, rational decision at that time. And years down the line, consequences might be bad, even if at the time it was the right call. You just never know, but there's always a reaction to action made. And I love how this series explores that, or the internal strife of characters. Ota, with his grief, he has been emperor. He has ordered men killed in his name. He has ordered it, having other people commit that. He has only ever killed someone with his bare hands once, back in the first book with Heshai. And he still lives with that to this very day. It influences his decisions moving forward. Same thing with Mati and the decisions he makes. Everything he does, influenced. But it all stems back. Everything that has happened in these 4 books, we don't know, we can only speculate what would happen elsewise, but everything stems from Ota, who was meant to one day become a poet, refusing that call, forging his own path. Everything that happens from there is ultimately due to him. I mean, Heshai and Seedless, that would have been a thing regardless, right? But would Mati have been sent to Heshai in the first place if not for Ota's decision? Would Ota have been sent to Heshai instead? Would he have controlled Seedless better? Would he have been able to rebind him properly? Maybe. We don't know. All we know is what the story provided based on Ota's decision. And Ota's decision influenced Mati, which influenced the state of the world itself, because he killed Heshai in order to protect the goat children. On to the second book, where due to his decision to not be a poet, he then becomes emperor of the Kime. Then war in the third book, because of the decisions of the first 2 books. And on, the spiraling decisions made. Of course, this is every story ever, action and consequence, but there's such a pinpoint accuracy and beat for beat. You can see, especially in hindsight, all the beats that led to each moment based on decisions, based on one act at the start of the series of Ota not sticking with the poets. It changed everything. And it is phenomenal how it all flows from that. But I love Ota. I love Mati. All these characters, all the characters we meet. I love Iya. I love Danit. They're phenomenal characters. They exist because of Ota and the decisions he's made, because he got married to Cayenne. They gave birth to those children. These children would not exist if not for those decisions. But we love these characters now due to Ota's decision. Or Mati, with his complicated relationship with Liet, and Najit, his child, which is actually Ota's, but still he has an emotional connection. Again, all the stuff based on Mati and Ota's decisions that just make everything come to a head. It's just incredible, incredible stuff. And it is a series I'll come back to. It's a series I'll appreciate more the second time through. It is so underappreciated, though. This should be praised just as highly as like a Game of Thrones or something. It may not be as expansive or as epic or maybe as deep in prose or characters or anything or the narrative, but for what it sets out to do, it does it flawlessly and perfectly, despite the fact that it's only 4 books. But maybe that's why it flows so much better, because there's no bloat. It is just the story that was exactly as it was meant to be told, with nothing in between. And it's complete and done. So I recommend this highly. If you read the first 3, you'll enjoy this one. For some reason, you're listening to this, because I know some people watch these videos even though they have no idea, they've never read the stuff I'm talking about. You owe it to yourself to read this series. You will enjoy it, you will appreciate it. But that's pretty much it, guys. If you enjoyed this video, give a thumbs up. Sharing helps it a ton. Next week, we got King Lear. And as for the rest of the year, well, I have some stuff in store for all of you. Like Wheel of Time, which I've been saying for months now, but it will actually be coming out. Some Iliad, Odyssey, ancient Greek plays, finishing off the Dune universe, and finishing First Law. and some Gothic literature. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, make sure to stick around and subscribe. And I'm really glad I read this. Really, really glad. Anyway, thank you, Daniel Abraham, for creating these characters and this story, and for creating the interesting aspect of the Andits and this whole idea of abstract ideas becoming beings which have powers. It's fascinating and interesting, and definitely one of the most unique fantasy settings I've ever encountered. But yeah, until next time, we'll see you. Stay safe.